All right, guys, well, let's move on from Lane Kiffin's new home to Lane Kiffin's old home. We'll jump to Ole Miss. We'll go to Oxford, Mississippi to talk about the Ole Miss Running Rebels. A national semifinalist last year, got to the Final Four, got clipped by Miami, and just barely missed out on an opportunity to get to Miami and play Indiana in the national championship game. But really kind of a magical season. Austin Simmons kind of starts the season as the Ole Miss quarterback last year, and then I think he gets hurt in the first month or so. Trinidad Chambliss comes in, and they never really look back, right? Chambliss is back. He got an injunction or some kind of exemption. Some local judge basically said, yeah, no, he's playing this year. He will be our quarterback. So he is back along with Kewan Lacy, who I think is, outside of maybe Ahmad Hardy at Missouri and Mark Fletcher at Miami, like one of my favorite running backs in the country to watch. So that's a pretty good 1-2 punch on the offensive side of the ball for Ole Miss to start with. And then I think people are under the assumption that Ole Miss just got completely gutted and raided, kind of like an Iowa State did in terms of their roster. That's not the case. Phil Steele has them in the top 40 still of returning production. Now, a lot of that is Chambliss and Lacy, but they still have pieces on offense, on defense, that this is a team that has experience. Not the most experienced team. They did lose some stuff in the portal, but they gained some experience and gained some meaningful production in the portal as well. So, Marsh, I'll come to you here first. Your Hurricanes are the team that took the Ole Miss Rebels out last year. You got to see kind of the terrifying nature of Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacy firsthand going against them to get to the national championship. What do you make of this team this year? And do you think there's a chance for them to get back to that spot or further and be in the national title picture this year?
Yeah, listen, I actually like Ole Miss better than LSU. I think the experience between Trinidad Chambliss and Kewan Lacy is something that can be leaned on pretty heavily. And I love Pete Golding as a coach too. Just a lot of the stuff he said at SEC Media Days, the way he handled the Lane Kiffin situation, the defensive mindset that he brings to the table, super disruptive and fast and very front driven. I like what Ole Miss has done here. I think there's something to be said about all the chaos and turmoil that happened with Lane Kiffin and how seamless the transition was to Pete Golding. Like Pete Golding was invested in Ole Miss. Everyone loved him. They loved what he was doing on the defensive side of the ball. Everyone talks about how great of a guy he is. In these situations, you need something to galvanize the team, and I think Pete Golding has done all the right things to do so. They have to replace both offensive tackles. The wide receiver room took a big hit. But to your point, Casey, it's not like they got rated from LSU. So this team is just in a transition from an identity perspective, from more of an offensive juggernaut to more of a defensive stronghold. But they have the offensive pieces that are super experienced in Chambliss and Kewan Lacy that they can lean on. I think the run game is going to be outstanding. The RPO game will be there. John David Baker taking over for Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he gets the benefit of seeing what a lot of Lane Kiffin did, but also implementing his own brain trust in that scenario too. So I think they take a little bit of what they did last year, amplify it to some extent or tweak it to some extent, but the defensive structure will be more of a foundation for them. And Pete Golding is a great coach, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to this team and seeing how they bounce back from all the nonsense that took place last year.
Ryan, hotty toddy?
I am hotty toddy this year. I was shocked to see that some of their odds are juiced higher than LSU with what they have coming back. I agree with Max. I think the transition was pretty seamless. I like Golding. You have Chambliss coming back. You have Lacy coming back. Those are as impressive as a 1-2 combo as anywhere in the country, really. So I like the over 7.5. Was kind of surprised to see it that low. They do have a tough schedule. That LSU game might be key for whether that hits or not for them. But I like hotty toddy this year. I think they hit the over. I think they get their revenge with LSU. I think that place is going to be the most electric atmosphere of the year early in the season. I can't wait for that game.
Yeah, look, they opened the season Labor Day weekend. I believe they're a Sunday night, but against Louisville in Nashville. That's not an easy game, but that's their Power 4 tougher out of conference game. And then you start running down the rest of the schedule. It's LSU in week 3 at home. They turn around and go right to Florida and play John Summerall and the Gators, what should be an improved Gators team. Big letdown opportunity for Ole Miss coming off that Super Bowl type atmosphere against LSU at home in week 3. They get a bye week, then they go to Vandy, Missouri at home, at Texas, Auburn at home, Georgia at home, at Oklahoma, and then their rivalry game, the Egg Bowl, Thanksgiving week. But I mean, geez Louise, with a bye week sandwiched in there, a 9-week period, they played these 8 games: LSU, Florida, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Texas, Auburn, Georgia, Oklahoma. Like, just a gauntlet right there in the middle of the season, starting with LSU and ending with Oklahoma in early November. So, man, they're really going to need to lean on that experience from Chambliss and Lacy and be able to move the ball, score some points. You would think just through attrition that there's probably at least a couple losses on the schedule this year, but who knows? We've seen guys come back like Chambliss and put together magical seasons. Maybe they are the team that gets through the SEC and is in the SEC championship game and, a very high seed in the CFP this year. But let's take a look at their odds. So the national championship, they are 30-1. The SEC championship, they are 11-1. To get to the college football playoff, they are plus 220. To not get to the college football playoff, they are minus 300. The over-under on them is 7.5. And I have to think that some of these odds are a little bit deflated just because of that schedule, that gauntlet that we just went over. Marsh, I'll come to you here. Anything stand out to you on the Rebels futures markets?
Yeah, I like over 7.5 wins. I'm not a fan of the SEC championship or the college football playoff. I think, again, I mentioned a lot of parity in the SEC, but there's parity in college football everywhere, I feel like, this year, not just the SEC. So those odds of the college football playoff as well as the SEC championship aren't as enticing to me. However, over 7.5 wins, I do like. You mentioned the gauntlet that they have. They have this. The first part of that stretch is LSU at home. We know that's Lane Kiffin's return. There's not going to be a team in college football more fired up for a game than Ole Miss on September 19th. And I think that the fact that LSU, Florida, Vanderbilt are all going through transition of some sort as well. So LSU, Florida, Vanderbilt all will have new quarterbacks at the helm. Florida has a new head coach. LSU, new head coach, where they're expecting immediate results. But like I mentioned, I think that takes more of a ramp period for Lane to get the offense where he wants it. I'd rather have LSU early in the season like they do. And then I'm not scared of Vanderbilt. I think Ole Miss has more talent than Vanderbilt does at this point. Missouri doesn't scare me. Texas is probably a loss. Auburn win. Georgia and Oklahoma will be interesting. I think if they can win one between Georgia and Oklahoma, they cover the 7.5. So that's the way I'm looking at this schedule. That's probably the number that I like best.
Ryan, what about you?
I like that over 7.5. I was tempted at 11-1 them to win the SEC, but that schedule really is so brutal. They could lose 2 games and be out of it, and I see 2 losses on their schedule, so I'm not going to pull the trigger on that.
Now, one thing to be cognizant of when LSU comes to town is Pete Golding in a new house yet? Because Lane Kiffin is talking about how he sees what Pete's doing on his Ring cameras, the fact that he moved into Lane's old house. And Lane strikes me as a teddy bear Cam kind of guy. I think there's some hidden shit in there, especially in the bedroom. Who knows what he's watching? I would maybe earmark on that one. Let's hope that old Pete Golding has a nice $2 million house under his own belt by that time, so Lane's not snooping around.
Yeah, or has at least had like a tech team come in and do a sweep of the house and get all of Lane's cameras out of there.
Yeah. Lord knows he already had to get the sex swing out. So,
well, yeah. Look, I think for me, this is probably more of a stay away, just given the schedule, and I don't want to fade Chambliss and Lacy. If anything, maybe like a very small sprinkle on the national title would be something I think could be kind of fun at 30-1. They were in the Final Four last year. I love Golding and kind of the direction I think he's going to take this team. This team specifically, I don't know how much I believe in Golding long term past kind of this core nucleus that was there last year and this year. But I do love his toughness, his mindset, the attitude, the culture that he's going to bring to Ole Miss. And then you got a superstar quarterback and a superstar running back on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's a good mix. So, could they catch lightning in a bottle and find themselves back deep into the college football playoff and potentially get it done this year at 30-1? I think that may be worth a small flyer. Everything else I'm pretty neutral on. So